Carol. I'm Carol Howard, and I'm just a member here at the church. I'm one of the deacons and married to him.
And I'm Jim. I'm a retired UCC pastor.
Oh, you
also,
are?
And a member here who occasionally gets to preach as Bill does. But for the most part, retired.
Good. All right,
Mike Ward, married to Jim.
all right,
Retired actuary.
all right,
Years, yes,
okay,
and we know each other.
we do,
Having worked
yeah,
with the New Hampshire Humanities.
that's right. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm Barb Shaltis, and that guy over there is my husband.
Okay, all right.
We're actually the newest ones in New Hampshire. We moved here about 7 years ago from Michigan.
Where in Michigan?
I retired from University of Michigan
Okay,
as a clinical social
all right,
worker,
yeah,
and we lived probably 30 miles west of Ann Arbor
okay.
in that part of Michigan.
I used to live in
But
Bay City, so.
thank you very much for coming
Oh,
and
sure,
being part of this.
yeah,
I'm Lindy Keller, and I'm married to a retired UCC minister.
It seems to be a theme.
But also I'm retired from working in the field of drug and alcohol services clinically for a while, and then for 25 years for the state developing programs.
I'm Lynn Morgan. I'm not a member of this church, but I have loved being part of this book group.
oh, nice.
Although sadly I was traveling and not able to be in the discussions on this, but I will catch up.
Okay, all right.
And my wife already told you who I am.
Yes.
I'm a retired high school and elementary school teacher,
Good for you.
and also ran technology for the school system in Michigan
Oh,
for
okay.
a good number of years.
Wonderful, wonderful, oh, great.
Janet,
Teachers are my heroes.
You know, he's the tech
He's
wizard.
our techie.
Right.
and Janet, you might just share with Randall the long history of this group, that it's existed for a long time.
Saw in the Concord Monitor a little blurb by the then pastor, Gordon Crouch. And he spoke in his little blurb about what he was going to be preaching about.
Yeah.
So I am not a church lady and don't normally go to church, though I was raised a Catholic.
Mhm.
But it sounded fascinating. So I thought, you drop in. And so I entered the church and looked around, and these were all my friends there. But this is terrific. And the sermon is terrific. And so deeply thoughtful. And
Yeah.
then Gordon mentioned he was going to embark on a three-part series after that. And so one thing led to another. And so I kept going back Sunday after Sunday, because this group of people were deeply thoughtful
Mhm,
in a way that I missed.
mhm.
And so finally, I said, I really should become a member. I'm taking advantage. And Gordon said, we welcome you wherever you are on your journey.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
here I am, and
Okay.
never look back. And this group, some of us are of a certain age, and I'll speak for myself. I want to do something about
Yeah.
where we're at,
Yeah, sure,
and I'm trying to be very circumspect
Yeah.
about what I do.
right,
And so that's actually the question I was going
yeah,
to
sure,
for you.
sure, yeah, yeah.
Because on the very first page of your preface to America's Best Idea, which I loved, you remind us of the first 16 words of the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof.
Yeah.
Then, on page 17, you write, and I quote, "Right to identify a foil for this book, it would be those voices breezily proclaiming that the United States is and always has been a Christian nation.
Yes.
That assertion is demonstrably false." End of quotation. Yet here we are,
Yeah, yeah,
with Christian nationalism once again taking center stage, and administration providing the Catholic Pope with religious direction.
Yeah. And the vice president saying that the Pope shouldn't talk theology.
Right. Okay.
This reality. I know how much you've done, your books, your documentaries. What more are you planning on doing? What do you advise us to do?
Oh,
We're starting with the easy.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, I've just finished another book, that I think maybe can contribute to the conversation. It's not the same type of book. It's a biography of, a US Senator from Oregon, who was in the Senate he was elected in 1966. Stayed for 30 years, Mark Hatfield. I don't know if you've
Sure.
heard of him. An extraordinary man, an evangelical, a Baptist, a real Baptist, because he believed passionately in the separation of church and state. And one day later in his career, Jesse Helms from North Carolina, you probably remember that name too, was proposing another bill to mandate prayers in public schools. And Mark Hatfield, who is a sincere and devout believer, got on the Senate floor and he said, let's be clear about this. The Supreme Court, the Congress, no one has ever said that students can't pray in public schools. He said, I believe in prayer. I prayed through every math examination. So he was that kind of guy, and also just a lovely, wonderful person. He's probably the last liberal Republican in America, political scene, and also, as I said, a deep believer, the first Republican, many prominents to come out against the war in Vietnam. He was in 1966. He was the governor of Oregon. He is reaching the end of his second term, and he had won the the Republican nomination for Senate, U.S. Senate. And at a time when 75% of Oregonians favored the war in Vietnam, and he was resolute about opposing the war in Vietnam. He went to the governor's conference, and he was the only governor to vote against a resolution supporting Johnson's conduct in Vietnam. And Johnson they were actually meeting in Minneapolis, the governors were, and Johnson flew them all to Washington. And then he he did the Johnson treatment. Come on up here, Mark. I want you to sit in the front row and listen to this, and pressed his shoulder, pressed his arm on his shoulder, and did his cooing Texas drawl, and tried to impress her. And Hatfield refused to budge. So he was that kind of guy. So that's a long answer to your question. And what I'm doing, I just finished that book. We're working through the copy edits right now. I think truth is a powerful antidote to what we're seeing today. I mean, we're living in an administration that has scant regard for truth, as we know. The number that keeps popping back in my head is 30,573. And that's the number of false or misleading statements Trump made in his first term as president. 30,573 documented false or misleading statements. I mean, that's staggering. And just by way of comparison, this is the Washington Post, the same people documented that in Barack Obama's 8 years as president, that number was 28.
28.
28.
Wow.
As opposed to 30,573. So I think truth is a powerful antidote. That's part of the reason I wrote the book. When people are saying kind of blithely, Janet was just quoting me, I guess, using that word, that the United States, as it is and always has been, a Christian nation. Well, it's, again, it's demonstrably false. It's not true. And I think we have to counter that with facts and say, look, are you saying seriously that Benjamin Franklin was an evangelical Christian? I have all the admiration in the world for Benjamin Franklin, but he would never be qualified for membership in one of these churches that are pushing Christian nationalism. You know, I mean, that's just ridiculous to say that. You know, are you really saying that this First Amendment doesn't mean what it says? And by the way, these people are originalists, right? Originalists. It's pretty clear. And one of David Barton, did I mention David Barton in here? This book? Did I? Oh, all right, I forgot if I did or not. You know, one of his points is that the phrase separation of church and state is not a pure. He's absolutely right. I'll give him a point on that one. He's absolutely right about that. But that phrase comes from Thomas Jefferson, and if he wasn't an originalist, I don't know who was. And you know, again, this needs to be pointed out. So I think truth is a powerful antidote. But I also think it's important to be active at the local level. I think it's awfully important. You running for school board or select person or whatever it might be. I think that's an important way to push back as well. Letters to the editor. I'm old fashioned enough to write op-eds for newspapers, and
I'm old fashioned enough to read them.
well, good.
Janet's our hero with that.
Yes, right.
But the concern that I have, Randall, is that the people that read
Right.
our op-eds and
Right.
editorials
Are older, yeah.
are older, and
Yeah, it's true.
we're not reaching the people
It's true.
that need
Yeah.
to at least
Yeah.
take a look.
Yeah. You
For
know,
example,
What about, thinking about younger people, investigating how high school history teachers are teaching
yeah,
history,
Yeah.
particularly when it comes to constitutional amendments.
Are allowed to teach
Well,
history.
how are they doing it, and how are they allowed to do it?
that's a good point.
Because that
Yeah.
may be a way of, frankly, I did not learn much in history in high school.
Right.
I'm not saying I wasn't, they didn't try to teach me, but I didn't learn a lot.
Right.
And so reading this was eye-opening
Oh,
for me
Yeah.
in terms of things that either I never learned or
Right.
maybe I did at some point but had completely forgotten.
Right.
But it makes me question, we
Yeah.
do have civics courses, and what are taught in civics courses. I
Yeah.
think that is something that when you talk about the truth.
I think we all know that, at least from what our racial justice team helped do with the portrait program, Americans Who Tell the Truth, we had a display here for a month, over a month. And some of the school classes came over and got to see the portraits and learn about these Americans Who Tell the Truth. Are you aware of this project or not?
No.
It's a fascinating project.
Really?
It really is. It's really, really neat.
Just
Yeah.
it pulls from people throughout the centuries, really, who
Right.
have spoken up
Yeah.
with the truth. And there were artists that did their photos, put a quote from them, and then they come with commentary about each one that kind
Huh.
of tells the history of it. And I don't know how many there are total. We had
I think we had at least 7 or 8.
at least, I was
Oh.
thinking 7 or 8, 2 of them that you can borrow to put on display, but the entire selection is more like
Probably 40.
40 or 50,
Oh, yeah,
that's what I was
yeah,
thinking.
Give
yeah.
me an example of
Bill
something.
McKibben.
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah.
Granny D.
Wonderful.
Granny D. You know
Robin
Granny D?
Kimmerer?
She was a 90-year-old woman that walked across the country for election reform.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
From New
from
Hampshire.
Dublin,
Yeah,
New
from
Hampshire.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay, all right. Lovely.
and
Yeah.
she started a whole movement in terms of, well, she didn't start it, but
Went back to the turn of the 20th century.
no,
Oh,
the
recently.
90s.
Oh,
She was, yeah,
Yeah,
and she was
she was in
old
her,
then.
She was very
She
old.
was in
Yeah.
her 80s or so
Yeah.
at that
Yeah.
time.
Huh.
But
Bill
then,
McKibben,
oh, sure, yeah.
Winona LaDuke.
Robin Wall Kimmerer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, great, wonderful.
I mean, it goes back to like George Washington and
Yeah,
stuff
sure,
too. or-
sure.
yeah, there was, yeah.
But
and then there were some women's rights.
Sure.
You know, suffragettes, there were more recently some young LGBTQ folks
Sure,
whose names I don't remember, but.
right,
uh,
sure, right.
So it was.
Civics taught in public schools, at least as I recall, growing up, and watching my daughters being taught.
Yeah,
It was sort of a throwaway, you know,
Yeah.
it was required,
right.
but no one got excited about it because it was solid. Remember, this is the truth and this is how our nation is, and
I read something, I think it must have been Facebook or something like that. It's someone bemoaning current state of affairs, and the quote was, "This is what you get when you have football coaches teaching civics."
but one of our daughters went to Dartmouth.
Oh, okay.
And,
Yeah.
you know, I'm concerned that, college did not raise her
Yeah,
awareness and
Yeah.
sensitivity
Yeah.
to the challenges.
yeah,
Not that the challenges were apparent,
right,
you know, in
Right.
91
Right.
and beyond. But you're at the college now.
Yeah.
You're dealing with young people.
Right.
And you talked about visiting the church down south.
Right.
Can you share with us a little bit about how your students appraise the current moment in
yeah.
American
It's
history?
hard to generalize, obviously, but yeah, I think, I think some of the better students, at least in my judgment, are certainly aware of it and are concerned about it and trying to figure out what they can do. You know, I mean, they seem to be interested in the courses I teach, you know, I don't have a problem with enrollments and, I probably will use this summer in my religion in North America course, because I think I can kind of spread out the chapters and make it relevant at various points in American history. So yeah, I think there's interest in it. You know, it's hard, again, it's hard to generalize. It's hard to know. Yeah, we have a lot of government majors at Dartmouth. We have a lot of computer science majors at Dartmouth. Many economics majors at Dartmouth. And, you know, it's pretty clear that they have a different trajectory from history majors or religion majors. So it's hard to generalize.
Among them, not generalizing, but, is there a level of concern, that matches the moment?
There's a level of concern. I don't know if it matches the moment, but yes, I think they're aware of it. Yeah, they are. Yeah, they're aware. I just did, well, I wrote about that, this trip down to see civil rights sites in the South. And, yeah, and that trip, you know, that's an example, I guess. It's a nice example. Before I came to Dartmouth in 2012, I taught at Columbia for 27 years, but I was also a visiting professor with the Columbia Journalism School. And I took a group of journalism students on a tour of the civil rights sites in the South. And I think I just mentioned it casually in class one day. And after class, you know, a couple of students came up and said, "We want to do that." So it was entirely their initiative. So that's that, to me, that's
It's encouraging.
encouraging. Yes, it's encouraging that they would do that. Want to do a trip like that in the first place, but then, you know, take the initiative. I mean, they raised money, and I mean, I really did nothing. All I did was tagged along.
I have a copy here of, the cornerstone speech. Alexander Hamilton Stevens, the vice president of the newly established Confederacy. And, it amazes me how, completely and utterly confident he is about this. The Constitution was fundamentally wrong.
Right. Right.
Those ideas rested upon the assumption of the equality of races. This was an error. It was a sandy foundation, and the government built upon it fell when the storm came and the wind blew. Our new government is founded upon exactly the opposite idea. Its foundations are laid. Its cornerstone rests upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery, subordination to the superior race is his natural and normal condition. This, our new government, is the first in the history of the world based upon this great physical, philosophical, and moral truth. And he goes on, that the principle will ultimately prevail, that we, in maintaining slavery as it exists with us, we're warring against a principle founded in nature, the principle of the equality of men. And he said they were attempting to make things equal, which the Creator had made unequal.
Signed Stephen Miller, right?
Who is it?
It's true. Vice
Vice President.
President of the Confederacy.
Oh.
And so this was a speech given on March 21st, 1861 by Alexander Hamilton Stevens. And I'll keep it nearby.
Yeah, I haven't heard that.
One that could have been preached today.
Yes, well, yeah.
That kind of goes to your question,
Which,
what you said you were gonna ask.
oh, yes, what I was wondering is because there've been times, which I hadn't realized till I read your book, when groups have tried to sort of overtake this
Yeah.
separation of
Yeah.
church and state
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
What about now? Do you think we're at more danger now than
Yep.
past attempts?
I think we are, for two reasons. Number one is Supreme Court. And I mean, I tend to be a fairly optimistic person, but the Supreme Court is deeply worrisome to me. I mean, my throwaway line is I wish the current Supreme Court had half as much deference for the First Amendment as it does for the Second. They love the Second Amendment, and they clearly hate the majority, of course. The other thing that worries me is that there's no longer, at least a serious effort to amend the Constitution. There's something running around it, with the permission of the Supreme Court. And so you have, particularly at the state level, places like Oklahoma, Florida, Texas, Iowa. And I say that with deep sadness because I spent my high school years in Iowa, and I'm a product of public education. I believe passionately in public education. They are running around, doing that run around that, particularly with the taxpayer funds for religious education. And the Supreme Court is saying, go ahead. I mean, and that used to be, I mean, I have a chapter in there, I think, about the Blaine amendments. I mean, that used to be the bright line. You know, church and state were severed, and you can criticize the Blaine amendment, and I would, because it was an anti-Catholic move, but it was still the right thing to do. And it never made it in the U.S. Constitution, of course, but 37 states passed or adopted some form of the Blaine Amendment, which prohibited the use of taxpayer money in religious education. And now that's just, the Espinoza decision, the Macon decision, the silly praying on the 50-yard line of the football field. I mean, Jesus said, pray in the closet. Doesn't say anything about the 50-yard line. Stupidest thing. And the Supreme Court says, oh, well, it's all fine. I mean, so yes, I'm worried about that.
Okay.
If anything keeps me awake at night, it's that the Supreme Court is currently configured. And, looking to the future, I mean, it's not going to change anytime soon. That's really worrisome.
Well, you, at the very end of the afterword, you say it's important for us all to remain vigilant.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate what vigilance you think would, matters, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, I mentioned Iowa, Florida, I mean, New Hampshire. I mean,
Yeah,
So I mean, that's that sort of thing. You're kind of fighting against it. I mean, I know it's hard. It's Sisyphusian, right? To do that, but I don't need. I have to resist. And any way you can. And the local level, again, I think is very important also, seems to me.
And along that line, what has been the reaction, if there is one, to the book?
It's been very, almost universally positive, which is a surprise to me, because I don't think I've ever read a book with that kind of.
It's because the nationals aren't reading it.
What?
Or it's such a gift to those of us who feel it,
Yeah,
gives us
yeah,
a focus and
Yeah.
actual factual information.
I hope so. Yeah.
It's so readable. I mean, it's not just for scholars.
Thank you.
And that I think makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Because for
Well, for me,
people
that,
like me who would have never read this,
Sure.
it's more like a textbook.
yeah, sure, I understand, and that's, I mean, you were asking what I'm doing. When I went to graduate school, way back in the last century, I vowed that I would never allow my scholarship to become so recondite that I couldn't communicate at least something to a general audience. So I worked on that. I mean, that is to say that I began writing op-eds when I was a graduate student, and I developed that discipline, and I want to communicate to a larger public. So that's, I hope to continue to do that. And so,
So a question that comes to mind, Randall, is given your thoughtful, historically solid, research and writing at Dartmouth, you, I'm sure, cross paths with folks who have the Christian nationalist, perhaps, perspective. Have you?
like my brothers,
Oh, your family too.
4 younger brothers, yeah.
So, have you? I don't know how to phrase this. Have you come across someone, of the different
Yeah.
political perspective who has been caught up short
Oh,
of what you've written? Have you been
yeah.
able to be persuasive?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not aware of it. I'm not aware of someone who's said, oh, I never thought of it that way before.
You didn't convince your brothers.
They don't really read. I'm just saying that critically believe.
So that, and that is a big thing.
It is a big thing.
That's
It's
huge.
big thing. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
None of my siblings, well, that's not true, but they don't read a lot of stuff that I read.
Right.
And I have a brother who, is of a very different political persuasion. And, he only reads what he knows in advance, he agrees.
He's
with.
breathing,
Mm.
right?
And so,
Well, we all kind of do that. Like, let's be honest. I think so. I think so.
you don't think someone could make an argument to me, persuading me that I missed something?
Well, I have a son, who. I don't know where he is. He believes there's gonna be a zombie apocalypse. I mean, that's his metaphor for what's going on, and it's a hopeless thing. Very, very brilliant. Reads and reads, and he reads left, right, middle. Fascinating to me.
So does my daughter,
Really?
Yeah,
who's brilliant.
Yeah.
yeah.
She's an activist.
So, yeah, and so they can argue about
She
anything,
can
you
read
know.
the other side.
Yeah.
No, that's important.
Well, Dad, have you ever thought about, what William Buckley said, or
Yeah.
guns steel, and who's that guy?
Yeah. Germs, guns and steel.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't remember the author's name.
Anyway,
But-
it's fascinating to me, but there are not a lot of people. I don't
Well,
think.
I will say I read a lot of fiction.
Yeah.
And I think you can learn more truth from fiction than you can from nonfiction. Truth with a capital T
Yeah.
as opposed to facts. And I do think that has expanded my ability to understand and even empathize with different perspectives on things. Which if I was reading the factual stuff might not convince me,
Huh.
but
Power.
identifying with a character who comes from such a different background that they see the world so differently does open my eyes to that.
Yeah. Huh.
And I think that is a powerful way to communicate as well.
Stories are very powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, and for the clergy here especially, I'm sure you've encountered this, people worrying about whether or not the genesis accounts of creation are legitimate.
Yeah.
That's not the point. It's a story. Story that
Which is
tells us something
A
essential.
capital T, not a,
Exactly, right.
not a fact.
Yeah.
I have
So,
an interesting question.
oh.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I'm a great appreciator of Howard Zinn.
Yeah.
And, he's done a lot to lift up the things that never made it into the history books.
The other story,
Yeah, and a real supporter and advocate for, for the civil rights taught at Morehouse when they tried to run him, people tried to run him out. There's a huge movement of educators that are involved in his work, and he was a big advocate for supporting nonviolent revolution. Any thoughts on that as an antidote to what's?
Oh, yeah.
I
I mean, I'm reading this latest biography of Martin Luther King. And it's just, it's a beautiful example of that. And he wasn't always nonviolent, by the way.
Oh, yeah, he carried a gun.
Yeah, he was very well armed at one point. But sure, I think that's awfully important.
Are we suggesting that to make things better, a revolution might be necessary?
Yes.
Depends on what you mean by revolution.
The zombie,
Well, yes.
you become a converter.
But that's a big word.
Be nonviolent.
Yeah, and it's a huge word.
I think we're already in a revolution.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I think we are.
think about what the word
And
means.
what makes the task so daunting is, the inequality that is written into the current political situation. This billionaire out in California who's spending $53 million to defeat the initiative on the billionaire tax. Think about that. I mean, there's got to be something more going on there. And the economic inequality is staggering right now. My wife and I, for the last few years, for health reasons, the longer story, have been driving back and forth across country, small RV, and we try to get off the interstates, see real America, and the rural poverty in this country is really, really striking, and then you see Elon Musk and all these people, building bigger and bigger yachts and whatever they're doing with their money, but it's really difficult. And then you have the media landscape, which is really frightening. And you have you'll live in the Fox world. I used to call it news because it's and that's their hermetically sealed universe. And so whatever they're told, so yes, a revolution, however defined, probably is necessary, but the odds are low.
This is a question from a gentleman, part of our group, he and his wife, and they're Catholic. But they've been part of our book group for a while and are traveling today, so they
Okay.
wanted to be here, they were hoping to get online, but they haven't been able to. But he sent me a question.
Yeah.
And he said, in the column, in the Concord Monitor on May 2nd, Reverend Balmer states Catholics and evangelicals have been collaborating on issues they see of mutual interest. And then he writes, however, it's become clear due to an encounter we had with some fundamentalists in South Dakota, there are some in the evangelical community who still do not feel Catholics are truly
Yeah,
Christian.
oh, yeah.
Given this, do you feel the current collaboration between Catholics and evangelicals will continue and ameliorate these divisions, or will disagreements on doctrine and what constitutes a Christian eventually cause the two to drift further apart?
It might, I don't think so, I think I see them coming together, and then that's a personal reflection more than anything else, that just seeing how it's changed in my lifetime. You know, the virulent anti-Catholic stuff that I grew up with, I think is really pretty much passed away. It's there's still kind of vestigial suspicion on the part of evangelicals toward Catholics. But as I said in that column, they've become co-belligerents on these, you know, hot button issues.
I think, and here's a second question
Yeah.
that he had, alternatively, could the recent memes posted of Trump as Pope and then of Jesus be events that could cause these two groups to be more accepting of each other?
Yeah, it's hard to. Again, it's hard to generalize, particularly about Catholics, because you have such a really broad spectrum.
Yeah.
Whereas white evangelicals are pretty much, you know, herding together politically and have been for the past 50 years or so. You know, again, my impression is that they banded together on these political matters fairly.
I'm going to add another question to this vein of thought. How do you feel our current Pope's perspectives and discussions with people is affecting this? Is it separating them more, or is it bringing them more together?
I'm very impressed so far with what I've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's a good question. If he keeps the faith, not that he's relying on me to for that determination. It may have an effect on the politics of white evangelicals. I mean, they may want to, you know, move away from him. On the other hand, they may be drawn to it. I don't know. I keep in my writings trying to remind evangelicals who they are and who Jesus is and what Jesus said. And you can see how stunningly successful I've been. I don't know. I think it's clear so far he's going to chart his own course and what he thinks is the gospel says. And to me, anytime we talk about the gospel, it's good news for everybody.
Where do you feel that black and brown, more conservative
Yeah.
Christian?
They've never
groups.
lined, they've
all this.
never really lined up with white evangelicals, and that's really, and there are historical reasons for that. First of all, going back to the days of slavery, the church or religion was the only avenue of expression for leadership within the black community, within the slave community, and so that tradition has prevailed. Even until recently, the majority of the Black Congressional Caucus, for example, was ordained ministers. I don't think it's any longer the case, but for a long time that was true. So they've always had kind of parallel tracks, it seems to me, you know, believing the same things religiously, but understanding the political implications in very different ways.
Where do they fit in this?
Yeah.
And just, I don't know how much you know about the United Church of Christ,
Yeah.
but it really has a strong black church
Yeah.
section, especially in the South.
Uh,
Although
Yeah.
Obama had to leave his UCC church because of Jeremiah Wright, but
Yeah. Yeah, again, I think it's kind of a parallel track to white evangelicalism, parallel in the sense that they believe many of the same things theologically, but then they
the
diverge.
social justice part
Yeah.
is in.
That's right, yeah.
So I don't hear much from them though in this
Yeah,
church and state discussion. And that may be because I live in New Hampshire, but
yeah. Well, I mean, that brings up the Johnson Amendment, which Trump has decided is no longer useful. But, it's still on the books, and I think it takes an act of Congress or Supreme Court to reverse the Johnson Amendment. But I'll defend the Johnson Amendment to anybody, because I think it's a very important distinction, not to have taxpayer money going to endorsement of candidates. That said, the black church has always transgressed that line for decades, and the IRS, I think, has not enforced it, which is part of the problem, and it should be enforced. But they're not enforcing it now with white evangelicals either. Here we are.
And I wondered if we might need to reclaim that word.
Oh, I'd love to.
Evangelical.
I'd love to.
And there are, and broaden our perspective about who's out there from the evangelical camp, the more progressive.
Right.
Even like Sojourners
Yep.
community in Washington,
Yep.
they've been around since the early 70s, and really on the cutting edge. There's a lot of evangelical groups that are devotees of Bill McKibben and the 350 movement, but we don't hear enough about them, and we need to get them out there. They're trying to get themselves out there.
Yeah.
But that's why I think social media is so important. Take I'll take your opinion piece and I'll post it.
Thank you.
Yeah. On
Yeah.
whatever, or if I find something that I think and I don't know who reads it, and I don't care. I just want it to be out there because so many people look at these things, and Facebook. I'm constantly finding fake news and AI generated stuff, and I just keep yelling about it, putting it out there saying, no, this is BS. It's clickbait, trying to drag you in, and it can be anything from a more progressive post to a right-wing post. But I think we've got to utilize every single tool at our disposal to counteract what's going on out there. The piece in your book about when the Southern Baptists took over the scene was a real turning point.
It was, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
just so huge, and gave license to Falwell and that whole crowd, and
It did.
yeah.
It did. Yeah, well, yes, there is an evangelical left, and actually Jim Wallace is a good friend. We talk about this quite a bit. Part of the problem, though, is that unlike people like Falwell and Pat Robertson, Jim didn't have a media empire behind him, right? He didn't have his own satellite. Right? And at that time, not so much now, but at that time, that made a huge difference. I think now you're right. I think social media. So thank you for doing that. And by the way, send a note to the Concord Monitor saying you like the columns. If you do, that would help, because I send them out every month. I send them out for the first Sunday of every month, and they don't always run them. So if you can say, yeah, we like this, keep them coming, that helps. But also helps, as you have done apparently, to repost them to social media. I'm old fashioned, I like
Well, I do too.
newsprint and everything.
I write and read, mostly real books.
No, me too.
But I'm really cognizant, and I worked at Franklin Pierce when university, when Facebook came on the scene.
Yeah.
And I saw what was happening with the students, and I said, I gotta learn about
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
you know, and so I did.
Good for you.
I know how to navigate it and look for BS and.
Yeah, I'm only about 20 years behind, but I'm trying to keep up. I'm still working on it. I talked to one of my colleagues yesterday about how to deal with the AI stuff in the classroom. But we both decided we have to be old school, you know, retro,
Yeah.
blue books.
Yeah,
Yeah,
some
good.
students are starting to agree with you, high school students.
Yes, I know
They're
that.
starting
Right,
to
right.
say that's. They introduce just a totally different viewpoint, which is that I believe a lot of this grows out, and you mentioned the divide, the economic divide in
Yeah.
the country, which
Yeah.
just is exponentially
Yeah.
separating. But I think a lot of what is going on grows out of fear.
Sure.
And that, I think, is where sometimes when we talk about revolution, you know, like if we're coming from a place of fighting back, we're increasing the fear on the other side, which strengthens their belief system. So do you have any thoughts on ways to impact decisions that are being made without being
Polarized.
confrontational? Thank you, that's the word I'm looking for.
You're
That
on.
would actually listen, you know, would actually address the underlying fear that
Yeah.
drives these kind
That's
of
really good.
extreme.
And I hate it when politicians say,
So that comes from reading fiction.
yeah, okay. I hate it when politicians say, I'm gonna fight for you. Why do you have to use this pugilistic language? all the
Exactly,
time? Like,
exactly.
It's just, I mean, I think that's one of the reasons we're in the mess we're in, is that people are always using that sort of confrontational language. It's, you know, I'm gonna advocate for you. All right. Yeah. Well, you fear is, I think these people realize that fear is an important motivator. And the other thing that's a very important motivator, and by the way, I think this is part of the reason, only part of the reason, but part of the reason that Donald Trump has been able over the last 3 elections to win 4 out of 5 white evangelical voters. Think about that. 5. Consistently over the last 3 presidential. And part of the reason, it's only part of the reason, but part of the reason is, I think, is this rhetoric about victimization, which is very, very powerful. And evangelicals historically, at least in the 20th century, have seen themselves as victims by these larger forces that are rather amorphous, whether it's communism or secularism or whatever it might be. And I think one of the reasons they gravitated to Trump is that he speaks the language of victimization better than anybody I've ever encountered. It's always by him. He's the victim, of course, but I think there's some kind of visceral way in which white evangelicals identified with that kind of rhetoric. And if you look back to the early days of the religious right, Falwell and Robertson, these other people, they used it all the time. Our values are under attack. You know, we're being marginalized, you know, and it's bullshit, but it's very, very effective to rally the troops. So, and you couple that with the rhetoric of fear, you know, that our way of life is being threatened and our way of life is imperiled in some way. It's very, very powerful. So, yeah, you know, the implicit corollary of your question is, how do you fight that? And I see I'm using that illustrative language myself. How do you counter that?
We have at the moment 2 political parties, major political parties.
Trafficking.
The
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
is doing very well.
Yeah.
And in my front hall on the bench, I have Project 2025.
Yeah.
And it terrifies me
Sure.
because it's chapter and verse. from 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah,
This planning
yeah. it
has
is,
been meticulous
Yes,
and it's being
Yeah.
utilized.
yeah.
We don't have anything to compare to that on the left.
No, we don't.
But I, you know, how you get this across, if fear is what drives the victimization. And yet many of the values they may be talking about, the current administration is actually creating
The fear.
not just the fear, but the actual conditions.
Yeah.
The conditions that make them victims, while at the same time
Yeah.
identifying with their victimization.
Yeah, yeah, it's a.
And
it's a
so
toxic mix.
I think sometimes the values that they're afraid of, we support,
Yeah,
you know?
Sure.
I'm speaking now of the left,
Yeah.
if we have to have sides.
Sure.
But how you communicate that and separate it from the fact that what the current administration is doing is making the divide wider and wider, right? And the fear is that we're going to get so poor that we're going to not be, right? It goes back to telling the truth, but it's not just facts. It's telling the truth about people's experiences. And
And I think it's fair to say the Democratic Party, at least the leadership, has lost.
they're not very good at that now.
What you just tweaked in me was, and I don't know if I read it in your book or elsewhere, but the Bernie,
Mhm.
pretty radical, but
Yeah,
that first election was, I'm either voting for Bernie or Trump. Well, why is that? And I think you hold up in there the appeal of the populist kind of thing that they were both onto. It drove me nuts that people saw them as equal choices.
Oh, I see. Right.
And
But I think it's getting at that, right?
yeah, and the same thing happened, in the Democratic Party, they're spineless. And they sabotage Bernie's
Yeah.
possibilities of
They
getting
did.
elected.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he didn't fight enough.
Right. Cause he's a pacifist.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But he's not ceased either. I mean, he's,
He's looking more and more like a prophet, isn't he?
Yeah.
I love him.
Know that he would have been a great president, but he is a prophet.
He is.
There's no
Yeah.
question.
Well, he would have surrounded himself with a lot of good people.
Yeah.
Because it's not just the president,
Right.
Well, no,
a
a lot more president.
As we are learning
Yes.
daily.
So where is the nation headed? And we know what Trump is doing. We know Project 2025 has the long view
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah.
We've just finished saying that the Democrats haven't mounted a significantly efficacious resistance.
We'll know more in November, I think.
Why do you think that is?
Yes,
We need
Why do
younger
you think the-
candidates. We need younger people involved because the people in the Democratic Party that have the power are basically doing what they've always done and it doesn't work. And yet they keep using the same strategies and they don't work. And I do think it's going to take people who are willing to take risks and who are younger and may have different ways of doing things that, the older folks are like, no, we can't do it that way. I just feel like that's a big part of it.
Did you hear, I'm sorry, Jim, but did you hear NPR this morning? there was a total focus on this.
Oh, no, I didn't.
On younger, the necessity of younger people running for office. And the failure of the Democratic Party, and it was based on some polls, however much faith we put in those, of that's one of the largest complaints. They're too old. And they have this,
You know, I don't think it's
Free-
just age, because
No,
Bernie's
no.
old too.
Yeah,
But I do think it is this is the way you do
Old guard.
politics. Old guard,
Yeah.
yes, and
Yeah.
it's
What-
not working.
Well, what I was trying to say was, it just so happened that my cousin is David Hogg, who is the co-founder of Leaders We Deserve, which has already had some significant success
yes.
in getting younger people elected at the state level, at least. Obviously, he's my cousin, I support him, in the work that they're doing, but that's an example of at least something positive. I don't know whether NPR mentioned that or not.
No,
He
they
got in
didn't.
trouble with the Democratic Party,
He did.
remember when he
Yeah, they
originally
did.
Yeah.
but he was like, no, let's get them out, and
Yeah,
that was not what they wanted to hear,
Yeah.
and somehow they finagled him out of there.
well, and Maine would be a good test.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, to see what's,
Yeah.
I mean, a flawed candidate. I mean, everybody's flawed, but but we'll see how that plays out.
And I'm fascinated to watch Mom Donnie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's
They-
hard to
Thank
say,
you.
isn't
Get
it?
out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, right. And AOC, I mean, every
Yes.
time I hear her, she's so bright and so articulate. She's really
Yeah.
impressive.
Crockett is another.
Yes, absolutely, yes. And Talarico, I mean,
Yes.
Yeah.
boy, that's coming on. It's
So going back to the church and state,
yeah, right.
what advice do you have for the church?
The church. I have long argued that, and you were talking now kind of mainline Protestant church, like,
Us.
you know, probably, I don't know much about you, but I mean, these can be centers of resistance, I think, and because the infrastructure is there, right? It's not being full, I guess. I'm an Episcopalian doing supply work in Vermont, so I see a lot of parishes. The physical plan isn't being used to full capacity, and these can be centers of resistance, I think. And what you're doing here, I think, is a good start.
I love the sound of what you're saying. And I haven't, I can feel something sort of coming together.
Yeah.
Which I hadn't thought about
Mm.
along the lines
Yeah.
that you're describing.
Yeah.
And we're in an emergency
It is,
situation.
it is.
And these aren't the sort of things I would have considered 10, 20 years ago.
Right,
But we're in a different place.
yeah. That's right.
And so, watch out.
Well, I think
Starting to coalesce there, Janet.
what we're talking about is complacency. I mean, with the Democratic Party and, and I'll be guilty myself. I mean, I thought that liberal democracy was pretty well entrenched.
Didn't we all?
Yeah, we did. Yeah. And it's no longer.
Right.
It's teetering. It's
We've
teetering.
been awakened, okay?
Yeah,
And now it's up to us
And
to meet the moment.
right. And I think organizing is important. What you're doing is awfully important, I think.
I
And
think
you multiply that, it's the incremental effect is going to be important, I think.
I think the point you make in your book about how the separation of church and state is not just good for the state, but actually has been the best thing for the church
Yeah.
writ large, is probably an argument that is going, the Christian nationalists could want the church to have more power, and making the argument that separating it from the state actually gives you more power, more strength, more. I didn't like the economic metaphors for the market, the
Mhm.
religious marketplace, but I understand them. But you know, that is perhaps an argument that
Yeah.
the church
Yeah.
can make that's not an in-your-face fighting against.
Yeah. No, I am genuinely baffled by this, and I'm not being histrionic here. The very people who have benefited most from the First Amendment, the separation of church and state, are now trying to undermine it.
Right.
Why would you do that? I mean, I'm dumbfounded by this.
Well, I'm
Do they
afraid
not know?
that it's because of this blueprint and the idea of theocracy.
Yeah. Yeah. You're probably right. I mean,
Mhm.
some of the more radical things groups in the Christian nationalist movement, would outlaw divorce, same-sex marriage, abortion, of course. Even though that's not, as you know, in that book, that's not the reason they got politicized, but that's what they want.
Yeah.
It's interesting, we have a new minister at our church, and she has, in the last several months, preached some really powerful sermons critiquing what's going on, and there's been a little bit of a, should she be doing that? Is she going to offend some people? We should, can you not belong to the church if you're a Republican, whatever. But basically, the consensus that has come out is that what she's preaching is the gospel, and you can't, and what the administration is doing is clearly anti-gospel.
Right.
So keep doing it.
Right.
But it's where we came down.
Right.
And you've heard these stories about these evangelical ministers who preach from the Sermon on the Mount, and they get pulled aside by parishioners afterwards saying, I didn't know you were communist.
Well,
Are there other books that you could recommend that we should read?
Oh, I think Tim Alberta's book, probably it's, pretty hefty book. Catherine Stewart has written some good, boy, I'm gonna be on a panel with her in a couple of months. Stewart is Stewart. And also, actually, it's my, I was on her dissertation committee. A woman named Carrie Ladner, Keri, Ladner. And she just got her doctorate from Edinburgh University just a couple of years ago. And she's now published a second book. And this one it's called American Dominion. And it's very good. She's doing good work.
Her last name again, please.
Ladner, Ladner. Carrie Ladner.
I have a just kind of curiosity question. Did you come into your field initially through the religion side or through the history?
My
politics side?
degree is technically out in religion at Princeton, but I did most of the coursework in the history department. Yeah. And actually, I'm trained as a colonial historian. And what happened, I got my degree at 85, and then I started teaching at Columbia that same year. And I'm sure you remember the televangelist scandals of the late 80s, right? With Jimmy Swaggart, Jim and Tammy Baker, and all that stuff. And at the time, I was the only one in New York City who was doing American religious history at the university level. And so I kept getting phone calls from ABC and NPR, which I was happy to do because I grew up evangelical, so I know that world. And I was happy to do the interviews and stuff like that. But I got rather impatient with the assumption on the part of the media that all evangelicals were either gullible or the moral equivalent of Jim Baker and Jimmy Swaggart. And I knew that wasn't true because I grew up now. So I got this crazy idea that I would travel around the country and visit various groups of evangelicals and write kind of New Yorker type profiles of these various groups. And, to show, that this group, this Pentecostal group over here is very different from this fundamentalist Bible camp up in New York State in the Adirondacks, and Calvary Chapel, which is the beginning of the Jesus movement, is different from Dallas Theological Seminary and so forth. But I went all, I think now the book's now is 5th edition. I think there are 16 chapters or something. But anyway, I went to my department chair, and I said, I got this great idea to write this book. It's kind of a travel, like be kind of a, stylistically, a blend between history and journalism, sort of. And he said, if you write that book, you will be committing professional suicide. I thought about it and said, what the hell? I'm doing it. And that kind of launched my career and redirected me away from colonial history to do more contemporary stuff. It's a longer answer than you.
No, that's
Great.
great.
Out of curiosity, was his response just that he was conservative or very academically oriented?
More academically oriented, I think. But when I was hired at Columbia, that same person, along with others, said, you will never get tenure at Columbia University. Never get tenure. You just come for 5 years and then move for something.
Because you were too.
That Columbia had that policy in the
okay.
80s. They didn't
give tenure.
Yeah, didn't give tenure. And so this was the same person who told me that. So I said, well, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And so that book was the basis of the 3-part PBS series that came out in the early 90s. And again, Emmy nomination and so forth. So.
And are you ordained?
I am. I'm an Episcopal priest. Yes.
Somewhere I had lost that. So.
No, I don't always say that, but yeah. And you guys are retired. I'm about to come out of retirement. Parish in Manchester, Vermont.
What a great Chester, a great town.
Yes.
Wow.
So how many groups like ours have you connected with, given writings?
Not exactly like yours, but I've done some Zoom things with some small groups. I'm doing something for the Dayton League of Women Voters. 17th or whatever that is. I'm doing the Seventh-day Adventists have asked me to come down and talk to them in Williamsburg in August. Can't imagine what that's going to be like. And then another group of Seventh-day Adventists wants me to come to Lincoln, Nebraska in October to talk to them.
So as a result of your visiting these places, have you seen actions develop?
I'm not sure I've tracked it in any systematic way, but at the very least, they feel empowered, I think, and energized, and I hope maybe that is the effect here. I hope that happens anyway. And even the existence of a book like that, I should be encouraging, I hope.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So I'm interested, the Seventh-day Adventists, which is not a huge denomination, you've got 2 groups reaching out to you. Do you know what is their impetus for?
I think the catalyst, I'm not sure the impetus, but the catalyst, I think, was when the book came out, they did an interview with me and they published it in their magazine.
Okay.
And now that I think, but I've never seen the interview, but I think that's where they got it. That's where they had the idea. And the name of the magazine, if I remember correctly, is Liberty. So they must care about these matters. So I don't know much about them. I mean, I know historically how they started and everything, but I don't know. Haven't had much contact with them over the years. So.
And are you still full time at Dartmouth?
I am. Yeah.
As well as being a pastor. Look at that. How exciting.
Yeah.
When did we start in Manchester?
Well, it's not, we're running, working out the details, but probably later this summer or September 1st, probably the latest.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so we'll see. I'm actually way to be here.
And we're up in that area, every Memorial Day weekend for the past 45 years.
Oh, is that right?
At the Bat and Kill Campground.
Oh, yeah, sure. No, it's a great place.
Swing by when we're up.
Yeah,
there.
please do. So, yeah, I've supplied there many times over the years and then they lost their rector and we'll see what happens.
I'm looking at the time, Randall. I
Yeah.
don't want to
Okay.
trespass on your
Well, thank
time,
you.
but I don't know exactly what's going to come of this, but I feel very strongly that you've planted some really,
Oh, good. I'm
Energetic.
glad to hear that. Glad to hear that.
so we'll keep you posted.
Please do. And I'll sign your books if you want me to.
Good, because this was the one I wanted to sign. That's the one I wanted to sign. It's all because of Diana Butler Bass.
Oh,
She-
really?
She was on a interview,
Yeah.
or actually she was speaking at a college thing. And in passing, she said, oh, well, Randall Balmer answered that in his book. That's taken
Oh, she
care of.
did.
This is the whole thing about abortion was never really the issue. It was
Racism.
racism.
Yeah,
And that's why that book really appeals to me.
yeah. Well, the origin of this book was in 2014. Politico asked me to write an article about this guy. They knew I had been doing research on it or whatever, and they said at one time, I'm sure it's no longer the case, that was the most popular article they'd ever published.
Really?
Yeah. I'm sure it's no longer true, but at one point, and 10 years later, I kept still get phone calls about that Politico article. And I thought I probably should do something about it. And so this allowed me to kind of expand the argument, but also to put in the footnotes so that, if anybody doubts what I'm saying, it's right there and they can have the documentation.
Yeah. Well, that's what intrigued me with that about what Matt said. This is the definitive book. It proves it. Okay, I guess I need to, who's this guy? I don't know. I'll get the book.
Diane and I go back a long way, so I'll leave it there, but. You want me to inscribe it or sign it?
Oh, just sign.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do that. Happy to do that.
Thank
All
you.
right. Well, thank you. I'm glad you like that. Yes, sir.
Yeah, well,
What's
expand-
describe or sign?
Whatever.
Okay, I'll just sign it then.
Thank you.
The full title of this is Bad Faith, Race, and the Rise of the Religious Right. And what he basically does is say it was never. It was always about race.
Well, you mentioned it in here.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
In passing. Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Passing.
Yes, please. Yes, the signature.
Here, right?
Thank you so much for
You're welcome.
one more, yep.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm happy. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. It's fun.
And Bill and I are ready to volunteer to supply preach in Manchester.
Yeah.
Are you? Sure, I'm sure I'll need it. Time. Yeah, it's a good group of people there, and it's a fairly healthy parish, and many of them are not. I can tell you some of these smaller parishes in Vermont are really sad. You get a dozen people on a Sunday.
Oh, that's true for our denomination too.
It's tough. It's really tough. That's why I say the infrastructure is there to support something.
Well, one of the things, you kind of alluded to this, and we appreciate because you've affirmed a lot of what we've been about. But when we've come to this book group and we've been studying books like this year, it's like the breath of fresh air, and we get to talk and share with one another. It's really fun.
Yeah.
I will say this was the most readable one that we've had in
Yeah.
a long
Yeah.
time.
definitely.
Yes, yeah.
That's one of the.
Thank you.
Some of those I have
appealing
to
things
slog
about
through for me
this-
personally.
The succinctness of the chapters, for one
Yes.
thing, I mean, you can buzz through this and comprehend it.
Yes, and the
Um,
stories.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
Stories, that's
Yeah.
what I can take. Just a quick question, the book you were talking about when you traveled around, is that the Mine Eyes Have Seen
Yes.
the Glory one?
We're coming up on the 40th anniversary of that book.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I think
And was that your first one?
my second book.
Second.
First book was the
Do
dissertation.
you think anything has changed significantly?
Oh,
in
absolutely,
that culture since-
absolutely, absolutely. That book, I mean, I love that book, but it's kind of in retrospect, it's kind of a soft focus view of evangelicalism, which was true at that time. Now it's becomes really
So
coarse and so politicized. I mean, I can know, even though I have theological sympathies with evangelicalism, I can no longer identify myself as an evangelical without a long disclaimer because of the politics. It's just the politics are so repugnant to me and so contrary
Christianity.
to Christianity, to the teaching of Jesus, but also part of what I argue. I think I did some of the argument in that book. Is to say, you look back into the 19th century, and these people were on the right side, well, the left side of almost every issue. Women's equality and voting rights, prison reform. You know, even I've run across an instance of gun control organization with evangelicals in the early part of the 19th century. Public education, they were pioneers, they were leaders in that common school movement.
Temperance.
Sorry?
Temperance.
Temperance, yeah. That temperance is more of a mixed bag. But at that time,
Right.
it was a progressive culture because there was a great deal of abuse.
Yeah.
And with, child abuse, spousal abuse and so forth. So it really was a progressive cause.
Hasn't changed much.
And I'm not surprised that you and Anna Butler Bass are close because of her evangelical.
Yes, right, yeah, no, that's one of the reasons, we know each other more years than either of us will care to tally, I'm sure. Go back a long time.
I have to keep reminding you that history doesn't stay static.
Yeah.
And so it's painful the time as we're living through.
Yeah.
There's hope.
This too shall pass.
Well,
Not without some help.
well, I'll conclude on a sermonic note with
Yeah,
that. Some years ago, somebody asked me to contribute an essay to a volume about hope. And I hadn't really thought much about it, but in the Christian tradition, as you know, the three theological virtues are faith, hope, and love at the end of Paul's letter to Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 13. And it occurred to me as I was writing the essay that we talk a lot about faith in religious circles. We talk a lot about love in the culture everywhere, Hallmark cards and rom-coms and everything like that. Don't talk much about hope. And it also occurred to me that of those three theological virtues, hope is the only virtue that is entirely volitional. That is to say, I can choose to be hopeful. I can't choose faith necessarily, especially if you're a Calvinist. You can't choose love, but you can choose to be hopeful. And so that's my parting admonition. That'll preach.
No, I'm part of a contemplatives group, and we choose a theme every month, and the last one was hope in these times.
Yeah.
Hope. What's hope in these times? And it was really fascinating to listen to each person's contribution.
Hey, can we invite you to be part of our usual closing, which is to stand and say the Lord's Prayer together?
Sure, of course.
And in any version that you care to do it.
All right.
I'll use the same words.
Right.
So we're gonna stand and do the Lord's Prayer right
Okay.
now.
All right.
I took over when you were out of the room, sorry, Bob.
Okay, with hands?
No hands.
All right.
Safe.
Okay,
Hands on, you wanna? conclude
There's
it?
Ann, she's with us.
She's
okay.
in Michigan right now.
And so I'll do the prompting from the prayer book. And now as our Savior Christ has taught us, we are bold to say. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive others. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and power, and glory forever.
Amen.
Right.
Trust
Trust
so
is the
much.
same as death.
Yeah, right.
Oh, we usually have someone here who says sin.
Sins. Oh,
That was you? If sin,
Yeah.
then
well, that's good.
trespass. But
This is
Gail
a
says
big
that.
thing.
Gail does
Oh,
too, yeah.
here.
And we'd be happy to put
Wrap
some
some
in,
up.
Ah,
we can put some
Yes,
in for you.
I read your working conflict.
In your wife's.
I'll take one of these.
Yes, my cholesterol doctor is here. Yep.
Yourself.
Dr. Mary McGowan.
Yeah.
There's memory.
More than one, there's.
No, that's fine, that's fine.
No, we'll be fine.
Thank you, your wife. I mean, exactly.
Grab numbers, I have to go to.
Well, I don't, but I have her
This is good
email and
business.
occasionally we email back. So, yeah.